Hello, good morning, America, and good evening, Slovenia. My name is Ana Maria, and I would like to welcome you all to the last and final webinar of the Entrepreneurship in New Reality webinar series. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to all our guest speakers, to the moderator, and to all of you, participants who are joining us here today to learn more about the topic of transatlantic cooperation. So before we start this webinar, just a short information what the Entrepreneurship in New Reality webinars are actually about. The ENR project, as we call it shortly, brings together 10 webinars covering actual topics in this new reality. We have brought together more than 30 guest speakers coming both from the United States and from Slovenia to share their professional know-how, ideas, and perspectives, and so that we can connect on the both sides of the ocean. So the ENR project, as we call it shortly, was created by Gale College Faculty of Entrepreneurship, who operates as a modern business center and has been educating young and future entrepreneurs for more than 30 years right now. And of course, we need to give our thanks to the United States Embassy in Ljubljana for supporting our project, and of course to all our national and international partners who are enabling this project. So before we introduce today's guest panelists and moderator, I would like to again thank you all for joining us here, and I hope that you will gain new knowledge and ideas so that you will be able to grow not only as entrepreneurs but also as individuals, and that you will be able to explore the potential of the topic of transatlantic cooperation, who is on today's agenda. And now I would like to present today's panel of guests who have vast experience in foreign service and the transatlantic cooperation as a topic. So firstly, we are honored and we would like to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Tone Kajzer, joining us from the Embassy of Slovenia in Washington. Ambassador Kaiser embarked on his diplomatic career by joining the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the beginning of 1995. He was soon posted to the Slovenian Embassy in Egypt. Later, he was appointed ambassador to Finland and Estonia. Following his return from Finland, he was appointed State Secretary at the Office of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia, engaging mostly with foreign policy and foreign economic issues. Later on, he served as ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark when he non-residentially covered the entire Nordic region. He was recently appointed as ambassador of Slovenia to the United States, and he also authored several contributions on international relations. Ambassador Kajzer, it is a great privilege to welcome you here today. Thank you for joining us. And we are also inviting me. Yes, it's a privilege indeed. Thank you. Moving on, we are also honored to present and welcome Mrs. Susan K. Falatko, Madam Charge d'Affaires at the United States Embassy here in Slovenia. Ms. Falatko joined United States Embassy in Ljubljana as Charge d'Affaires in June 2019. Before that, she served as the director of the Office of South Central European Affairs at the US Department of State, focusing on the Western Balkans. She served in foreign service since 1999 and was posted to Mauritius, to Seychelles, to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cuba, and Mali. From 2003 till 2005, she worked on economic, counterterrorism, and Western Balkan issues on the OSCE desk in the European Bureau's Office for Regional Political Military Affairs. Ms. Falatko has also been posted to Rwanda and to the US mission to the United Nations in Geneva. Madam Charge d'Affaires, it is a great privilege to welcome you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. Moreover, I would like to introduce and welcome Mr. Thomas J. Brandi, who is joining us from the United States in the role of a moderator and leader of this panel. Mr. Brandi is the president of ASEF Foundation, an honorary consul of Slovenia in California, a practicing lawyer in San Francisco, and also a professor at University of San Francisco teaching trial practice. But very importantly, he also has ties with Slovenia as his family comes from the Bila Krajina. Mr. Brandi, I thank you sincerely for being here with us today. Last but not least, we have another ASEF member here today. This is Mr. Kaj Jež, ASEF Fellow at University of Washington, who will later, at the Q&A session, join us in the role of active listener and will be presented at that time. For now, I think we're ready to begin, and we're looking forward to an inspiring debate on transatlantic cooperation. Mr. Brandi, this virtual floor is now yours.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? Am I
Yes.
unmuted?
No, it's okay.
Thank you very much for being here today. I hope we can get a couple of different perspectives and that we can all engage ultimately. Feel free to send any questions that you have, and we'll try to cover them. And we have a wide range of topics with two incredibly knowledgeable and experienced people. Mr. Ambassador, I'm going to throw the first question to you. When you look at the role of a small country, Slovenia, in trade with the United States of America, a trading powerhouse, what from your perspective, what do you see are the biggest challenges for Slovenia in dealing with the United States in terms of a trading partner?
Thank you very much once again for the invitation. Thank you, Honorary Consul. I have to title you Honorary Consul, but Thomas, thank you for having a very important role in today's debate. Well, I'm always looking from a positive side. I would say, instead of challenges, I would say opportunities. The figures we are now having between United States, if we talk just bilateral trade, are, if you ask me, too modest. We have to be more ambitious. So what are the biggest obstacles on this more legislative side? What I would say is to make, I'm holding a book, actually, I can show it, and it says Economic Freedom Index. We have to make things more functional. We have to reduce bureaucracy, and I will be a bit critical on the Slovenian side. I think our business environment, and maybe Susan Falatko will compliment me later on, should be even more competitive. So I would say now at the moment we have the situation as it is. We are trying to attract more foreign direct investments, greenfield investments, but to do that, to be able to run faster, we have to be more fit. So we have to make our environment more entrepreneurial, friendly oriented, and we have to reduce some of the bureaucratic burden. This would be in short, but later on we can also follow up on this.
If I could ask a follow-up question to that, Mr. Ambassador, you talked about being more entrepreneurial. The Slovenian model of business, essentially since 1991, independence, is a different model and a different mindset than existed certainly in the post-war years. So when you talk about more entrepreneurial, is there a generational gap in terms of young people coming into the marketplace being more open to entrepreneurial aspects than someone that's maybe 55 or 60 or 65 that came and grew up in a different model? Is there anything on that you wish to comment on?
Yeah, definitely, you are right. But the things are not going. You know, when we were all struggling for our independence, I remember I was at the time just finishing my studies, and I was searching for a job. We were all saying Slovenia will be a new Switzerland. And one thing is that you change the legislation, you change the frame, but another thing is to change the mindset, not to change the mindset, to somehow adjust the mindset. What I can see now, looking at the young generation, I think we are doing, we are progressing, but we have to put more emphasis, and here the education system comes into the play, that we have more, when the young people are getting education, like in the United States, I think you are, Susan will compliment me later on, you are starting to kind of open the eyes for the young people that you don't have to wait what the country will do for you, but you have to be proactive and do something for yourself, support yourself. This is the entrepreneurial, but the somehow message behind to be entrepreneurial, especially in the past of the so-called glory years of the self-governed socialism. I'm joking, of course. It was a catastrophe from the economic point of view and also from other points of view, was that the state will take care of everything. So people were not actually thinking in this direction. So what we can see now is the step in the right direction. But there are some other elements I mentioned before. Bureaucracy should follow. Productivity of our private sector is at this level. Productivity of the public sector, I have to be a little bit self-critical, it's still lagging behind. So we have to balance those things.
Ms. Falatko, from your perspective and your role, perhaps you could tell our viewers a little bit about what your role is in Slovenia and your perspective of the USA-Slovenian trade relationship.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me here. I would agree with a lot of what Ambassador Kaiser has said already. You're absolutely right. There are opportunities going both ways. There are opportunities for US companies in Slovenia and for Slovenian companies in the United States. But there are challenges that we acknowledge, and that is partly what our role is. One of our main purposes here in Slovenia is to increase the trade and investment, the economic relationship and cooperation between our two countries. And for a Slovenian company looking at the United States, I can imagine that, the biggest challenge would be, where do I start? I mean, the United States is this huge market, 50 states, municipalities. I mean, I can imagine many of you probably sitting out there, if you're entrepreneurs, you're like, I don't even know what to do. What's the first step? And that's one of the places where the embassy can come in. We try to facilitate making those connections because it is hard. But we have a lot of tools that we can do that we can help with. We have our Department of Commerce has a commercial service that is based in Vienna, but they can help facilitate connections in, sectors or in, companies. But we also have a program for Slovenian companies, for any company that wants to invest in the United States, because of course we welcome, large multinationals, we welcome small entrepreneurs, we are open to investment. So we're trying to facilitate that. And one of probably our highlight or signature programs is called Select USA. And this is something that we've been doing. It's an annual event, and it's where we try to put together a delegation from each country of entrepreneurs, of investors. We go with them to Washington. There's usually a big Select USA conference, and we invite all 50 states to bring their chambers of commerce or their folks to come and talk to investors about what every state has to offer, because every place is different. But this is kind of like a one-stop shop where all the investors can walk around and see what's out there and make those connections. This year we'll do it again. It'll be virtual, obviously, because we're still, all getting through COVID. But this is something that we continue doing. For US investors looking at Slovenia, every country, every embassy, we publish a country commercial guide that looks at kind of the environment, the business environment. We collaborate here all the time with the AmCham in Slovenia, with Spirit in Slovenia, with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So we can help make those connections for investors and traders.
Ms. Falatko, do you have on the website the connections and the places to go? The reason I ask is I've encountered a number of people who will write me in my role as counsel in San Francisco, seeking to get into business or a business opportunity, and I have the impression that word isn't out there. So what can the Slovenian community do to better inform Slovenian entrepreneurs of the potential role of assistance that the U.S. Embassy will provide?
Well, it's good that you asked that. It probably shows that we could do a better job with marketing what we have. This should be on our website. There's a section for commercial services. There's a link to our economic officers who can help them and can connect them also to the Department of Commerce in Vienna. So, it's good to know if people are having trouble looking for that kind of stuff, we can talk. And this is a question too from my public affairs team on how we can do a better job of advertising those services that we have. JB,
I would just jump in and say, Mr. Brandi, that your role is essential in that, because there's a little known law called Smith-Mundt that prevents us from really promoting our services to Americans. So all of our stuff is facing towards Slovenia and to Slovenes. And so it kind of makes it maybe a little bit more challenging, but the information is definitely out there. And I would encourage people to look not only on our website, but also to follow us on social media, because when things like Spirit USA or the Spirit events are coming up and Select USA, we always put that on Facebook and tweet stuff out. So following the embassy is also a good plan.
Thank you for that, because I get contacted by people and it's sort of like they don't know where to look or what to do, and they're looking to us to try to say, well, these are the regulations, this is what you need to do. You know, I end up saying, well, what's your business plan? All the standard questions that a lot of them don't seem to have. So there seems to be some homework to be done by the Slovenian entrepreneurs seeking access to the US market. And it's good to know that there's that potential for access to get information. Mr. Ambassador, going back to you, in terms of different sectors in the Slovenian economy, this weekend I was speaking with a woman friend of mine who was the former CEO of a 50-store company that provided nursery and tools and plants and products. And she told me that they go to Slovenia to get a lot of woodworking products. And so I was wondering, what sectors are in the Slovenian economy that do you think are potentially poised for success entering the US economy?
Well, I wouldn't wish to be now in the position that I would instruct the entrepreneurs which sector to take. Obviously, there are many factors. I would wish to see that those are the sectors with the high added value, where we have competence, where we have where we are holding some competences, and those are obviously the sectors which are bringing the high added value. And we can name some of them, especially regarding technology, IT. We are good. We are good. We have some competitive advantages in the pharmaceuticals. You have mentioned wood. Slovenia is the third most forested country in the EU. So in this regard, but I think we have lost quite a lot of those competences in the last 30 years. Maybe there are some things where we can also merge. There are new technologies, space technologies. We are in cyberspace doing all kinds of things now. You know, cyber security. It's one of the most important things to keep our infrastructure, critical infrastructure safe. So in many areas, I wouldn't point, and of course, when this COVID is over, or when you said, Tom, for that new reality will come, and I would say tourism, of course, will, and it is a very important thing. So people have to go around, have to travel, have to meet each other. So, and also we have, it's no secret, when a former Secretary of State, Mr. Pompeo, visited Slovenia, we have signed a memorandum of understanding regarding the cooperation in the civil use of the nuclear energy. Those are the things where I would look into. And of course, there are some smaller things which are beyond the radar, and those are the niches. So we are always, if we are approached, and our economic counselor who is watching this, he's in daily contact with the Slovenian companies, different companies, asking questions. So we are trying not to instruct them, but maybe to give them some useful information how to proceed. And just to conclude this, you have mentioned sectors. I just spoke recently with, I call him our congressman. Of course, he's American congressman from Arizona, Mr. Gossar. And there are obviously two gold mines there. And you would be surprised to hear that in one of those gold mines, one Slovenian company with advanced technology is now doing their job to extract the gold. So I wish them good luck. I will go and see them, and I hope a small piece of gold will also fall on the ambassador's table. I'm joking.
Yeah, don't shake your pants out too fast when you get out of the mine. Ms. Falatko, from the standpoint of your perspective, and the U.S. companies entering the Slovenian market, what are the challenges that they're presented with?
It's a different set of challenges for U.S. companies coming here. I think, let me start by saying that there are huge opportunities in Slovenia, and U.S. companies have already taken advantage of that. Our bilateral investment, I think the United States is the third largest bilateral investor in Slovenia. That's if you look at direct and indirect investment together. It's over $2 billion, I believe. So obviously, this is a great place to invest, and American companies have already recognized that. I think moving forward, we want to look at, there are still some kind of structural issues, and we talk to the Slovenian government about this a lot, and we work with them on that. We look at issues of, privatization. We think there can be more privatization going on. We could see some changes perhaps to the labor codes or the taxation codes, things like this that make it a little bit easier, the business environment a little bit easier. We work with AmCham on these things as well, and I know they also work with the government and talk to them on that. I do think there probably are some sectors here that I would point out as good opportunities for American companies. I think energy is definitely one, as you mentioned. Medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, space, definitely, logistics, distribution, ICT. I mean, a lot of these are, high-tech sectors, and this is a highly educated, very impressive research, in Slovenia, researchers, there's a lot going on that I think we could really partner, American companies and Slovenian companies can partner on.
You indicated $2 billion of investment. That strikes me as a layperson as very, very significant. Has that been consistent, or is it recent? What can you tell us historically about maybe how that's evolved?
And I don't have a whole lot of history on it, but some of the companies that are here, like Goodyear Tires is here, and it's got one of the biggest production facilities, and they're about to make a big investment to grow it even bigger. We have two of the largest banks here, American investment behind that. Slovenia is a fairly young country, so I would imagine this doesn't go back decades, but right. It's probably fairly new. I don't know, maybe Ambassador Kaiser knows a little bit better than I do, but as a 30-year-old country, I think it's probably, in the last 10, 20 years.
So, Mr. Ambassador, back to you, $2 billion of U.S. investment in Slovenia. How is that received by the Slovenian government? Is that seen as a good down payment? Is it seen as progressing? Is it? How would you characterize it?
Well, I would first comment that we see every and each investment coming to Slovenia bringing added value, creating new jobs, creating new opportunities as a contribution to our prosperity and well-being. And we have to look from this point of view. Ms. Falatko mentioned financial sector, of course, banks, some companies like Goodyear and others who are having really high added value. What I would wish, because the numbers are kind of very realistically showing that our added value per employee in Slovenia, I'm talking now in euros, but we can also change to US, it's around 45,000 euro per employee. And in order to be better, we have to run faster. We have to get more foreign direct investments, but not with a decree, but with making more competitive business environment, coming all the time to the same point. So what this government, especially Slovenia is a really good ally and partner to United States. Maybe a certain time I wouldn't be critical. We have lost a little bit compass, but now this government especially is really dedicated to good transatlantic relations, and especially bilaterally speaking with the United States. So this team here, myself and economic counselor and others, I'm always saying to all my colleagues here at the embassy, we are all economic counselors at the end of the day, are doing our best to increase this cooperation. So what I will say, I just wish to see this number figures to grow. Of course, US investments to Slovenia, and also vice versa. And that's the way forward.
Mr. Ambassador, for those who may be interested in investing in Slovenia, what are the aspects or attributes of Slovenia that make it an attractive place to invest for an American company or a company from anywhere else? And then Ms. Falatko, I'll throw that same question to you when he's finished.
Yeah, well, I would look first from the perspective what the God gave us. And Slovenia is the most beautiful country in the world, we say, with the love and everything. But what do we have out of geography? We have a perfect position, logistics. We have a port of copper. Port of copper is our window to the outside world. And I think with our American friends, we already have discussions how to work together to further develop copper, also in some strategic ways, not only commercial. Then wood, all set of wood processing, because we are so rich with wood. Why would we cut down our wood and then export it to our friendly neighboring Austria, where Austrians would do then the final products and sell them with a triple or even higher price? So those are the areas. Just I named just a few. And then energy. How are we going to make this? Green transformation sounds nice, but when you ask an average person, where is electricity coming from? Out of the socket? No, it has to be generated somehow. So we have some, hydropower plants. We are still quite strong with hydro. So those areas where we have our competitive advantages, and we are encouraging and, of course, giving out the information that the information would come to the right ears of investors, our partners, and we can work together. This would be, in short, from my side.
Ms. Falatko, would you give us your perspective on that same question?
Well, already the ambassador said it, and our former ambassador before she left used to say this all the time. It's location, location, location. Not just the port, but proximity to all the major transportation corridors. But I would also add highly educated workforce, proximity to Central Europe, to the Western Balkans. And then, it's EU, Schengen, all of those things that make this a very attractive place to be.
Okay, let's look in our crystal balls now. And I'm not going to ask you the price of oil or gold or copper or anything, but let's ask ourselves 10 years from now, 2030, 31, or 20 years from now, where's Slovenia in its relationship with the US on trade? Mr. Ambassador, where do you hope to be? Where do you hope your country would be there? We have 2 billion investment now. In terms of trade coming from Slovenia into the United States and Slovenian trade coming to the United States, what would your wish list be?
There is a song. We don't know what the future holds. It's a kind of looking into the crystal ball. But I'm an optimist by the nature. So looking at the figure, okay, we can talk about the figures, billions, and so on and so forth. But what I would wish to be, to have the situation, and you said in 10, 15 years, I would wish that we would all be stronger. I would wish that we all further cherish our common values, human rights, traditional Western values. That is kind of keeping our spirit high. At the end of the day, I'm maybe now kind of speaking more philosophically. In the material world, it's important, but otherwise also the spiritual one, to be happy. And as you have seen, Slovenia has advanced in the looking globally on this index of happiness. And I know that US is also advancing, so let's try to get on the top. Now I'm taking around, to be as the Nordics, because the Finns or Norwegians are the happiest. No, I'm saying let's do what we agree. Let's deliver. Let's be honest partners, and let's promote our common values. And then the prosperity itself will come through the allowing entrepreneurs and those who are developing new solutions to be even more motivated. We don't know what the technology will bring. Sometimes it's even to be afraid a little bit, but we have to look from the positive side to use the technology, because technology is now, I just spoke with the leadership of Google. I will reveal all the secrets. No, I'm not, because Ambassador is here to talk with all the companies and different stakeholders. Technology is now the main factor which is contributing to raise the productivity, and it's affecting the trade enormously. So in this circle, I would see Slovenia and United States, but Slovenia is just a member of the family. We are on this side of Atlantic 27. Sometimes it's not easy, when there is a 27, but I'm very optimistic that we are actually now progressing. And just today, Secretary Blinken is in Brussels discussing important things, also geostrategically, if you wish, where United States and Europe will work closely together. So I'm an optimist. So in 10, 20 years, let's meet again.
Mhm.
I think if you're a diplomat, you have to be an optimist and keep a long view. Ms. Falatko, trying to ask the same question again, from your perspective. I know that historically countries have talked about their goals and their plans, and I think we've seen real growth in the Slovenian economy overall, if you take a historical perspective, and for a very young country of basically 30 years, it has some tremendous achievements, but recognizes it has a long way perhaps to go. Where do you see potentially in a wish list the role of the two countries in 10 or 20 years?
Well, I agree with Ambassador Kaizer. We are natural partners, and the transatlantic relationship it's deeply rooted on these shared values and rule of law and human rights, as you say. I think that we have seen really good cooperation over many years with Slovenia. And I think even with the new Biden administration, he has made it a priority to strengthen the relationship with Europe and with the EU, and including Slovenia. Even though we already had a very strong relationship, we're looking at ways to make that even stronger. But I think even with the new Biden administration, we're seeing even greater opportunities that maybe we hadn't even not so long ago. I think one of those areas is climate change and environment. And I think that moving forward, this is going to be something that everyone has to focus on. It's a global challenge. And I think that there are real opportunities between Slovenia and the United States. Slovenes care very deeply about the environment. And I think that with the United States putting this into all its foreign and domestic policy, this is a Slovenian priority. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And the innovators that we've seen in Slovenia, these are the people that are going to be moving these ideas forward. And I think these are the kinds of things. I mean, you've asked kind of for a crystal ball. I think environment, energy solutions, I think those are all areas that have real potential here. So I would agree that I'm optimistic as well. I think this is only going to grow. It's going to continue. So by, in the next 20, 30 years, I think it's going to be an even stronger partnership.
Well, I'm glad we have our two panelists who see glasses half full. Ms. Falatko, I want to stay with you. We're talking about transatlantic cooperation in the US and Slovenia, but looming is China, and the growth of China. How does China and its endeavors to reach out economically, find new strategic partners and partnership opportunities, how does China impact the potential of the relationship of the USA and its trade partner, Slovenia.
Mhm. It's no secret that the United States watches China's growing assertiveness with concern, in economic, diplomatic, military spheres. And, we see this as these moves are they're mounting a challenge to what has been a very stable and open international system. And all the norms that have been established and that we've been working with for so long, they're being tested. And we see that as a real concern. And we see that as a real concern to the way, the world is ordered. I think this makes it even more important for us to be cooperating with our allies and partners, including Slovenia. We've been doing this already, and I think that's just going to continue. So you already mentioned the MOU on civil nuclear cooperation. We also have a joint declaration on 5G security. I think all of these things are looking at ensuring that, telecommunications networks, energy, those they don't rely on unsecure vendors, that they are free from malign influence. And so we look forward to continuing to work with Slovenia in international fora to ensure that this rules-based order that we've all really succeeded under for so many years, that this continues. We work with Slovenia as well in Central Europe, looking at the 3Cs initiative and looking at connectivity in energy, transportation, communications. And I think, this provides an alternative to Slovenia and to Central Europe, to actors that may have less good intentions, I think. So I think that is the real key to moving forward. It is working with our partners and allies and making sure that we are building strong, stable networks of communications and transportation and all that is free from influence that might have
Mr. Ambassador, I'm sorry, Ms. Falatko, I stepped on your last comment. I apologize. Mr. Ambassador, I wanted to get a quick response if I could, and then we only have a short minute or two that I want to have kind of a lightning round on two subjects. So any quick off the top comments on the impact of China and its presence on the relationship of trade in the US and Slovenia?
We can talk about this hours and hours, but I agree completely here with Falatko that we have nothing against China. China is a country with we respect Chinese culture, we respect their interests, but looking at the international norms, we have to come to understanding that we have to play by the book, as we say. And in this regard, I think we are working together with our allies. Technology, we talk about technology, 5G and so on. We are part of the also global partnership for artificial intelligence together with the United States to actually put the set of norms where all the countries, including China, we have to agree there is enough space for all of us to work together and to bring prosperity. I'm speaking now like a Dalai Lama, of course not. Countries are having different interests, but in this regard, we just have to stick together, and I think now it's the time to continue with the talks between the EU and United States, and then invite, of course, bring China at the table. US is now back very actively in the multilateral setup, in the multilateral fora, and there is the place to sit, talk, agree, and then play by the book. And then I think there is enough positive energy for all of us.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds each. And my last question is, we've been living with the pandemic. How has that impacted your jobs and your roles and your ability to use diplomacy while seeking the goals and representing your respective countries? Ms. Falatko.
Me first. I have to say, it has changed so many things about the way we work. So much of economic diplomacy is getting out there, meeting people, talking, going to visit businesses, making those connections. It's very hard to do that in a format like this, especially when you haven't met someone before, to say, hey, I don't know you, let's have a Zoom call. It's odd, but this may be, I think we've learned a lot about how to make these work. And I think they can be successful. I mean, look at what we're doing today. So I think there's a future in this. It changes the way that we work. But I think it's going to be doable eventually.
So I like the optimist view of a problem is simply a door opening to a solution. Mr. Ambassador, 30 seconds. How has the pandemic affected you and your ability to do your job and its impact on the question at hand?
Diplomat as a soldier should never complain. You would just have to accommodate. So what we are using now, it's the modern technologies to reach out to our audience, if I may say so. But of course, I think slowly we are going to not resume the kind of a business as usual. We will go, and we are already out, talk to the people, because we are humans. We are social beings. So we will be actually doing, and we are all the time doing our job. But the main message is we have to accommodate. If we are closed inside and we are just complaining, we can't do anything, this is not the way forward. So I'm also optimistic regarding this, that diplomacy and diplomats will survive at the end of the day. You won't have robots or artificial intelligence, it will be humans.
Well, I think both of you have shed a terrific light on this issue, and I really like the approach that seems that each of you as optimists conceive the better angels amongst us as the way forward, which I guess is the core of diplomacy. So before I throw it back, I do want to have a brief commercial for the American Slovenian Education Foundation. We started in 2014. We provide basically fellowships for 10 weeks for students to come and study. We had 3 in 2014. They went to UC Berkeley, Stanford, and Santa Clara. Since then, we have had 127 students. 98 students from Slovenia have come and studied in 10-week fellowships in the US, and 27 have gone to Slovenia. It's a growing program. I encourage you to look at our website. It's one of the ways that we've introduced young Slovenian researchers, graduate students, PhDs, to science, to some of the best professors in the world. They've published articles together. They've continued to collaborate, and it's a way of breaking down barriers and enhancing society. So that's it from this part of the program. So I believe that there's another speaker.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been a really inspiring and great debate. So thank you, Ambassador Kaizer. Thank you, Madam Chargé Falatko, and thank you, Mr. Brandi. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Kaj Jež. He is an ASEF Research Fellow at the University of Washington, covering the topic of water policy and water rights. And this was also mentioned before as one of the topics that the transatlantic cooperation definitely has potential in the future. And he is currently working as European Operations Manager at Adrianople Group, focusing primarily on economic analysis issues with a heavy focus on European interaction with emerging markets in the US. So I would like to welcome now Kaj for giving a short commentary on the topics today discussed, and of course giving his insight and ideas working in the economic sector, connecting both the United States and Slovenia, and of course to address our guest panelists with more relevant questions. So Kaj, be my guest.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm assuming everyone can hear me well.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you all for a very insightful and very wonderful conversation. Thank you especially, Mr. Kaizer, for holding up the Index of Economic Freedom. I believe that was the Fraser version, and our colleagues are always happy to see it. As a side note, there is also a Index of Human Freedom that is developed annually by with a Slovenian co-author. But to go into some of my experiences and my commentaries on the topics discussed, there was an emphasis on the role of education, which I find very important, and given that it is an educational institution hosting us today, I find it perhaps even more important that Slovenia improve its focus on educating students in fields of economics and business to do business in the US and in Slovenia's other trade partners. To give an example, just recently I've begun performing due diligence for a fund of funds looking to invest into private equity in Europe and Slovenia. And surprisingly enough, The education I received at my alma mater at the University of Ljubljana School of Business and Economics hadn't really prepared me for the subject, because the institutional environment between the US and Slovenia is so vastly different that private equity funds, which are, I believe, now $1 trillion industry in the United States, don't even exist in Slovenia to any significant degree. And as, of course, Slovenia's educational system is still developing, and especially its business schools are still adapting to a modern business environment, it is always welcome to see more collaboration with the business world as things progress. Then moving forward, I would also like to ask both Mr. Kajzer and Ms. Falatko, to what degree do they see the European Union as an actor in this relationship between the United States and Slovenia? Because in our experience, a lot of the time it can be of great benefit, and a lot of the time it can present not necessarily challenges, but certain problems that are unintended. For instance, our company has been significantly engaged in Rwanda, which I believe Ms. Falatko also served in, and specifically in the field of special economic zones. And this is something we have extensively met with legislators in Slovenia regarding implementation here. And it turns out that the main problem is presented by EU legislation. I believe there was another comment made in the Zoom chat today about the possibility for special visa types to Slovenia in terms of transatlantic collaboration. And that again is presented with some problems due to the Schengen visa system. And I was curious whether both of you see this as an opportunity or as a challenge. And as for my last question, I have, in what way can diplomacy and economic diplomacy work towards improving the legislative environment in Slovenia? For instance, there was a lot said about how to make it so that we have a significant added value and in terms of workers here. One of the main problems I personally see to that is the fact that Slovenia has, I believe, the first or the second highest all-in marginal tax rate on personal income, which contributes significantly to the brain drain. And a lot of that brain drain is to the US, and as I can tell you from personal experience. So how can diplomacy and how can economic diplomacy help perhaps improve those elements of policy? And I'll pass the word on to Ms. Falatko first, and then Mr. Kajzer.
Great, thank you. As far as are there EU, how does this work with the EU and Slovenia? From my experience, there hasn't been, or I can't say too much about it because I haven't seen a whole lot of US companies coming in and experiencing difficulty that's related to EU regulations or, nothing that's, that's not Slovenian. So I don't have as much to add on that. I don't know if Ambassador Kajzer has seen that happen. I don't see it as having been a major issue, not since I've been here. That doesn't mean it isn't, but I haven't seen it.
Thank you.
Yeah. There is always space to improve. Thank you very much for elaborating this, Mr. Jež, and perfect English, I have to say. Well, EU, it's, I just had a word with the Czech ambassador because we are working on those concentric circles, first neighbors and then enlarge the circles, and neighbors are the most important. When there is a storm, you can call your relative on the other side of the Atlantic, but the neighbor is the first there to help. That was seen in the first days of this terrible COVID thing. He said, look, my friend Tony, EU is a strange animal. We are all feeding it, but at the end of the day, we have to see that this animal is functional, so that it's actually, and this animal, if I can say this metaphor, it's us. So we have to work together, and some people are saying now the bureaucrats in Brussels won't be happy if they are listening. They have grown too fat. We have too much bureaucracy. We have too many different directives and so on. But we are 27. So sometimes it's not so easy to get to the consensus. But what we are all the time, and especially this government is doing now, that the EU should be functional. We should not build, and see now going through the vaccination for COVID-19, the EU institutions, and we have the right as the taxpayers, should be efficient. So in this regard, I would always welcome all the proposals where you, young generation, see the things to be done better, to bring it to the attention of the politicians, those who are sitting. We have our parliamentaries in the European Parliament, so to make those institutions more efficient. Now, I didn't answer directly, is EU an obstacle? For sure, it should not be an obstacle. It should be a tool how to increase our cooperation because we are natural allies. A transatlantic partnership should last, and will last. So regarding the EU, this is the comment. And some concrete obstacles you were mentioning, visas and creating special economic zones in Rwanda. I know that we have in 10 days, I will be a guest speaker at the Association of American Women in Scandinavia, led by respective spouse of our honorary consul, Dr. Kirsten. And I said to Rwanda, why I'm saying this, there is a logic that in Rwanda, we have, Slovenia is financing one really effectively working development project. So regarding Rwanda, some concrete questions, what you are actually facing, please send to me, send to my economic counselor. And here is also the answer to the last part of the question, what economic diplomacy can do. What we are doing and we have to do, and I'm telling to all my colleagues, we are not bureaucrats sitting in the office from 8 to 4, moving one paper from one side to another, but we have to go out. We have to listen. And we have to report and have to give our suggestions what things could be done better back home, not by following copy-paste, but to be even more efficient. And legislation and taxes and those things. I was working, thanks God, I have to say, in Denmark for 5 years. They have the so-called flexicurity system, where people are motivated to work. Of course, the taxes are high, but at the end of the day, they get a lot of those taxes. So institutions should also function. But in Slovenia, I'm not saying we are young. Okay, we are like, formally, we are holding our country for 30 years, but we are existing much longer. We have existed through the Austro-Hungarian and other structures, and we are going to show now that as a small nation, we can actually punch above our weight to make the society functionally and working. So, and that's actually depending on young generation. And here I think we have to work together. So thank you for all those questions. I'm always answering and opening my doors. So let's work together to improve the things which are functioning or maybe can function even better. Sorry, it was a little bit longer, but those are the main messages.
And Kai, can I answer your second question? On the economic diplomacy piece, there are a lot of things that we do. And, we don't just speak to the government. We do that a lot, but we can advocate for companies if we need to on particular issues. But we also work through the public diplomacy sphere. We have done, we do educational exchanges, even of professionals. We can send them to the States to look at a particular issue, like an investment screening mechanism. We've put together programs, sometimes in coordination with the American Chamber of Commerce. We work with them quite a lot to do programs, talking to business people, talking about what the issues are, and inviting people from the government. And sometimes it's even putting together business people in the government to talk about these issues, because otherwise they haven't gotten together to discuss those things. So, there's a lot of tools that we use here in Slovenia and elsewhere that I think ultimately can be very successful.
Okay, thank you so much. And here we have Kai. Maybe just a short comment.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you both for your answers, and I hope to see you at future events, and that this collaboration between ASEF and Slovenia and the United States as a whole can continue fruitfully.
Great. Thank you so much, Kai, for joining us and for bringing these remarks on the table. And of course, thank you to both guest panelists for addressing the questions. And now we have a couple of minutes left. So I will just quickly skip through the questions. We've got some questions before Mr. Brandi will move to the sum up part of the webinar. So the first question was by George Deriso, professor of entrepreneurship at University of Colorado, United States. And it was already discussed before. Regarding an accelerated for entrepreneurship and economic stimulus in Slovenia, that would be the reform of Slovenian immigration policy by creating a startup visa or temporary work permits for digital nomads. So this was a short comment that both the guest panelists can just remark shortly. The second question was, how do you see the role of digitalization in terms of Slovenia and United States cooperation? And then the last one comes from the group of international relations students, a society called Globalis. And they were basically asking that previously it was referred that there is a program for connecting Slovenian companies with the US market, that when people come to the United States, they can meet the future investors. So their question was, how did this program work last year because of the COVID crisis and everything? So are there maybe recommendations how to join, and of course, how it will work for the future? So this is it to sum up. And I suggest just shortly we do a quick round of remarks, and then we will move on to the sum up phase. So Ambassador Kajzer, maybe you can.
Okay. So the first question, if I got it right, it was about the immigration, so that the young people are moving out, or I missed that point because I concentrating on digitalization and on the question of globalis. So
it was about that we could boost the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Slovenia if Slovenia would provide so-called digital startup visa, so that we could get more startups also here in Slovenia. I got it like this, and if I wasn't correctly,
it's a useful proposal. We can elaborate on that one. I have actually, in the meantime, typing here in this chat room. So all those concrete questions, they can be sent either to my colleague, economic counselor, Bojan, they call him Bojan, I'm joking, here in US, or myself directly, so we can elaborate. I think that's a useful idea. We can for sure proceed this to Ljubljana and with our proposals, how to work on it. So maybe I can just give a quick comment on this digitalization. Digitalization, obviously, it's a powerful tool now to transform the societies, economies, and everything. So it's the most important area we are working with the United States and other partners. Here, Slovenia is having this International Center for Development of Artificial Intelligence, working under UNESCO. It's not a secret. I had a really good conversation with our Minister of he's Minister for Public Administration, but he's running the whole set of organization with Jan Koritnik, and I hope we will come to the realization of his bilateral visits to United States, talk with the governmental and also business partners. So digitalization, yes, for sure. And about the question of this students of international relations, Globalis, if I understood correctly, they would wish to access the program for connecting Slovenian companies with US market. They can also write to Mr. Bojan Škoda, and I have to say that we have a list of well-organized seminars in Slovenia called How to Deal with America, and we are working there with our Chamber of Industry, with Agency Spirit, Slovenian Export Bank, and of course US Embassy also, and MCHAM is there, so they could get hooked in into that circle. To see. Well, at the moment, of course, traveling is not so easy, but we are all now, I think we have to be patient and we have to follow the vaccination and to proceed with the common efforts to conquer, let's say, the COVID. And then, of course, all the students are most welcome to come also here to the Slovenian Embassy in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Kajzer. Madam Chargé, Ms. Falatko, may I ask you for your comments?
Yes, of course. And digitalization, obviously, this is everything in the future mostly is going to be digitalized. That is something that we all have to work on. At the same time, we have to resist the urge to move towards protectionism in the digital realm. We're concerned about the concept of digital sovereignty. We hope that the EU's new laws and regulations on the digital economy don't result in de facto protectionism. You know, that could exclude US products and services that facilitate EU economic growth. So that is something that we want to continue to work with the Slovenian government and the EU on. But ultimately, yeah, digitalization is the future. So we have to find a common understanding and work towards that. On cooperation, yeah, this last year obviously was very difficult for everybody, and a lot of things that we normally would do have had to be done differently. And there are still lots of things that we can do online. We still have been able to offer, some investors have been able to get visas for certain kinds of travel. But for example, with the Select USA Summit that's coming up again, it's going to be virtual. And so if anyone is interested in doing that, the whole thing will be virtual. We've got the program for it. I would encourage you to reach out to the embassy and to our economic officer, and he can help anybody figure out how to join that and be a part of it. Because I think there, again, it's a new world we're in right now, and we're learning how to do things differently. And just because we can't travel, I think we've learned a lot about how we can still collaborate and cooperate and make these connections happen. So if anyone wants to reach out to us on that, please do.
Great, thank you so much. We have covered all the questions, and since time is really, really rushing, I would suggest, Mr. Brandi, you can take over when we make a short round for sum ups to close this webinar.
Whether you are from Slovenia or the United States, anyone watching this should be really heartened and proud at the quality of the representation of Ms. Falatko and Mr. Kaiser. I frankly blown away by the substance of the responses and the talent and just the thinking process that goes through. It's really good to see that people that are responsible for our respective countries are so competent and so qualified and so enthusiastic and so dedicated. And so my hat's off to both of you. And this has been a very, very enjoyable hour for me. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I wish everyone well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for organizing this. You are doing a great job. And I hope we have contributed a little bit to the audience, that they have found a piece for themselves, and that this is going to create new added value for all of us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much. On behalf of GEA College, thank you, Ambassador Kajzer. Thank you, Madam Chargé, Mrs. Falatko. And of course, thank you, Mr. Brandi, for being with us, for sharing your thoughts. I'm just receiving here in the chat thank you messages that it has been a fantastic panel, a lot of useful information and insights. And the guests are praising this event and all the new things they have gotten. So really, this is what sums up this as a great webinar. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, for taking your time. It has really been a privilege. And thank you all the attendees for joining us and being with us. And of course, this is the last webinar in the series. So we are closing now this Entrepreneurship in New Reality program. And I would like just to conclude it as we usually do by saying goodbye, America, and good night, Slovenia. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.